Hi guys, this is Vineet and this is a video on Azure Blob Storage. Today we will discuss about Azure Blob Storage. So before we proceed ahead, I would request you guys to go ahead and hit on the subscribe button to subscribe to my channel, and right next to it there is a bell icon. Click on that and select all notifications to get all the notifications regarding any of my future videos. So let's quickly move on to notes. So let's discuss about the Azure Blob Storage. Alright. So this is a diagram for Azure Blob Storage indicating how SQL Server 2016 running on a VM or an on-premise server stores its data on the Azure Blob Storage, which is storage in the cloud on Azure. And let's discuss few points about this storage. So SQL Server supports backing up data to Azure Blob Storage in the following ways. So first point is how do we back up to Microsoft Azure? We can now back up to Microsoft Azure by specifying URL as a backup destination instead of a file destination. We select a URL as a backup destination. Let me show you where you can select this option. So just give me a moment. I've started SQL Server, waiting for it to open. Just give us few minutes. Alright guys, SQL Server is open, so let me connect to the database. Let's try to see what backup options are available. So I'm right clicking on the Northwind database and doing task and then doing a backup option. So as we were just discussing, one option is to backup to disk, where you can back up to a local drive or a network attached storage. Second option is you can back up to URL, which is to Azure Blob Storage. For that you need to click add and specify the Azure container name, and if a container is not already there you can specify it here. So once you click on that, you need to sign into your Microsoft Azure account, provide in the details, then click OK, and then you can provide the container details. And when you back up, the files will back up on Azure Blob Storage container, which is basically a folder on Azure Blob Storage. Let's go back to notes. We are just discussing it briefly over here. So we can now back up to URL as a backup destination. And there is an add-in for SQL Server backup that can be used to Microsoft Azure tool to quickly and easily create backups to Microsoft Azure storage. Next option is file snapshot backups for database files in Azure Blob Storage. So we can also take file snapshot backups, which we will discuss later. We can do file snapshot backups for database files in Azure Blob Storage, and there's an option called Azure Snapshots. SQL Server file snapshot backups provide instant backups and restore for backup files stored using Azure Blob Storage. So using Azure Snapshot, we can take snapshot of the database files, which can be later used to restore the database backup. And this capability simplifies the backup and restore policies, and it also supports point-in-time restore. Next topic is SQL Server managing backup. Sorry, it's not managing, but managed backups. So there is also an option to keep managed backup of SQL Server on Microsoft Azure, and we can configure SQL Server to manage the backup strategy and schedule backups for single or multiple databases. Now let's discuss about some of the benefit of storing your backups on the Azure Blob Storage instead of the local storage or network attached storage. Basically, it provides flexibility, reliability, and limitless off-site storage. So off-site storage should typically be far enough. So one of the ideal way to have backups is to store the backup in a distant location. So Azure Blob Storage provides us that facility where offsite storage should typically be far enough from the production database location to prevent from a disaster that might impact both the offsite and production database location. So there may be a scenario where your production database location gets hampered and your offsite location also get hampered, where you are storing your backups at the same time. So using Azure Blob Storage backups, you can store your backups to far distant locations, and there's also an option called Azure Replicate Blob Storage. We can use this option to provide extra layer of protection in the event of disaster that could affect the whole region or maybe a whole country. Backups are available from anywhere and at any time. And we can use the block blobs instead of page blobs in SQL Server to stripe our backup set to support file sizes up to 12.8 TB. So basically, striping of a file means dividing a file into multiple chunks. So we can write SQL Server backups to Azure Blob Storage as block blobs. Using that, we can support a maximum file size of up to 12.8 TB. Second benefit is we do have a backup archive. So blob storage provides a better alternative to the often used tape option to archive backups. Tape storage requires physical transportation to the offsite facility and measure to protect the media as well. So if we are using tape backups, we need the transportation facility to take our backups to the offsite storage location, and we also need measures to protect those tape backups. And whereas if we store the backups in the Azure Blob Storage, it provides instant, highly available and durable archiving option, and we do not have to take the overhead of hardware management. That is another benefit. So Azure services manage the hardware. So Microsoft manages the hardware in this scenario and provides the geo application facility for redundancy and to protect against any hardware failure. Fourth benefit, one of the benefit is it's cost effective as well. And the last benefit is for instances of SQL Server running in Azure Virtual Machine. So on Azure portal, we can create Azure Virtual Machine where the instances of SQL Server are running, and backing up to in those cases where the SQL Server are running on Azure Virtual Machines, backing up to Azure Blob Storage can be done creating attached disk. So we can attach the disk to that virtual machine and backups can be taken there. But there is a limit on the number of disks that we can attach to the virtual machine, which is of 16 disks for an extra large instance. And by enabling direct backup to the Azure Blob Storage, we can bypass this 16 disk limit. Backup files stored in Azure Blob Storage is directly available to either an on-premise SQL Server or another SQL Server running on Azure Virtual Machine. So these are some of the benefits of using the Azure Blob Storage. Let's see how much time have passed. So guys, we are done for this video. In this video we have discussed about Azure Blob Storage briefly, how you can take backup to specifying the URL option to Azure Blob Storage, and we have also discussed about taking backups in Azure Blob Storage has some benefits. We have discussed about some of those benefits. So guys, I hope you like this video. Please hit on the subscribe button and hit on the bell icon and select all to get updates regarding all my future video. I thank you once again for your time. You have a wonderful day ahead. Bye bye.